Welcome to the Self-Care for the Creative podcast. The podcast for artists and songwriters and music creators who want sustainable success, not burnout disguised as hustle. I'm your host, Stefani Fryzel. I'm an author, an artist, a songwriter, and a creative coach, and I'm the founder of Stefani Fryzel Coaching. We help artists and songwriters build sustainable careers in music and give them the opportunity to get in the room with hit songwriters and uplevel their craft. In this season, you will hear from hit songwriters on how they protect their creative energy, their mental health, behind the scenes on the music industry lessons that you won't find on Instagram, strategies for navigating rejection, burnout, overwhelm, conversations about money, mindset, boundaries, success, failures, and finding longevity in the industry. This podcast is for creatives who are serious about their craft as a songwriter and an artist, committed to growth, and are ready to stop sacrificing their well-being in the process. If you want to write better songs, build a stronger career, and still feel grounded, inspired, and motivated, this podcast is for you. I'm so glad you're here. Kaydence is a two-time Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter based in Los Angeles. She co-wrote Ariana Grande's #1 hit singles, Thank You Next and 7 Rings. She also co-wrote Beyoncé's Black Parade, which won a Grammy for Best R&B Performance. She's co-written songs for Brandy, Daniel Caesar, Zayn, J-Lo, Her, Black, Alina Baraz, Leon Bridges, and many more. And she's a dear friend of mine. Please welcome Kaydence. Welcome, Kaydence, to the podcast.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here because, I've known you for several years. We've worked together. You were just a mentor at our most recent Hitmakers retreat. And you just told me you're back in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back.
All the moves. Back. Yeah. So let's take it to the beginning. For those of you that don't know you, tell us how you got into music, sort of a broad overstroke of your journey in the industry.
Yeah. Okay. So I got into music really, from my family. My dad has been a worship leader in church. My sister has been singing since she was 2. So, naturally I just kind of follow suit. I tried for a while to just kind of suppress it because I was like, everyone has their thing. I wanted my thing. But I feel like when you just have this strong purpose and calling, it doesn't matter how much you try and avoid it. You're just going to end up doing it. So I couldn't fight it anymore. Naturally just fell into it and I loved what I did. I actually started with production because I was like, I don't want to sing. My sister does that. And then I started with production, and then I started, a friend of mine that I was recording was like, you should just, try writing the songs, And so I started writing and, I was rapping at first. Yeah, we all start somewhere.
Were you a natural rapper? Did that
I don't want to say it was a natural rapper because, I feel like everyone starts out, right? You're still finding your voice or finding your comfortability on a mic. So at first it's going to sound not natural.
Right.
You're forcing it. A couple of days ago, I was listening to some old stuff that I wrote and I was like, gosh, this is horrid.
This is so cringe. Ew. That's always the thing, going back in time and listening to the first, the beginning phases of your songwriting journey. That's something that we talk about a lot with coaching clients of people that are, either scared to put music out, scared to start somewhere. And the truth of the matter is that we all start somewhere,
Yeah.
And we all start in that phase of really just not knowing what our voice is or what our skills are and all of the things. So it took you sounds like it took you some time to kind of figure out that voice. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say even after I got a publishing deal, I could say up until 2017, I didn't really fully find my voice, and that took really just time in front of a microphone and developing that skill to where I really got comfortable. And now I'm just okay, well, I can even record in front of people. When you go into the studio and there's a microphone and oh my gosh, no one else.
Scared.
Yeah, everyone can hear like the raw vocals. Like even though I have tuning on and headphones, like everyone's about to hear how crazy I sound,
Yeah, or like everyone's going to hear when I mess up or if I go off key or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a real thing, especially for newer artists or even people that have been at it for a while that just aren't necessarily comfortable with doing freestyle melodies, or if melodies isn't a thing that like maybe that's not the first thing that comes to them because everyone's different, whether it's lyrics or melody. So what do you think? I mean, I know everyone has their own influences as well. What do you think, aside from like just being on the mic more often, was there like sort of like an internal thing that happened for you that made you feel confident in using your voice?
I think that one, working with the right people that can boost you up, it really helped me find my voice and find my confidence because like anyone, if you're just, not getting that validation, like you kind of start second guessing yourself. So like, when you work with people that like make you feel good, not lie to you, but at least say like, wow, that, that was great, just to boost that confidence a little bit. So you can start stepping into like, once you step into a confidence and then you start recording with that confidence, like your whole approach is different. The delivery and the melodies are different because you're like, I know I got this.
Know what I'm doing. I got this. Yeah. Well, what I'm kind of picking up from what you just said is that there's almost, depending on who you're working with and who you're in the room with, the right collaborators, the right people can really bring out the best in you. And
absolutely,
there's also like a level of safety that you almost need to feel in order to activate that confidence or try that pass or try something out of the box. Right. So when you're with people that kind of give you that safety, that sense of support or community, we come out as stronger songwriters.
Absolutely.
So I was so excited to have you at Hitmakers at this last retreat, and like you did all 3 days. Everyone had such a blast. And obviously I was like busy doing my thing and I was coming in and out of the rooms occasionally, but like otherwise I was letting people do their creative thing, let them do their, get in their zone of genius. What did you see happen or shift for the participants that you were there? Like, what did you witness? Like from day one to day 3? Like what transformations did you see? Because I missed all of that.
I know in one of the rooms there was someone who I don't think she ever recorded before ever.
Wow.
So she got into the booth and like all the people that were there in the room were hyping her up. They even went into the booth to like record content for her. Yes. Like it was really supportive. And I'm like, wow, I really like wish everyone got to experience this like coming up, because that really just like, puts a battery in your back and it makes you confident for the next time you go in, So it was really amazing to see. Everybody was so supportive of each other. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're like so hyped about the event itself, is that it is open to anybody at any level. There really is no requirement except for, the characteristic or personality that you're a serious songwriter and you're, committed and, have courage to like do the scary thing. Like you said, somebody had never recorded vocals ever before and then walked out of the retreat with a vocal recorded. That's amazing. That's so, so cool. Did you have any moments where you were kind of like, because obviously you've been in this industry for so long, you've been through probably so many ups and downs, which we'll get into. You've had tremendous success. What was it like for you to be, the hit maker in the room and then working alongside people that are sort of, either at the beginning of the journey or in the middle of the journey? Like, did you have any moments where you were like, damn, like I've really come a long way. Like I used to be like this person that didn't understand how to get on the mic.
It honestly brought me back to like, I think it was like 2012, 2013. I was working with Frequency and I didn't know how to record other than what I would record myself. So, he was vocal producing. He was, I heard my voice mixed a whole different way that I've never heard before.
He's a wizard.
Yeah, he is. He really is. So it brought me back to those times where I'm just like, wow, like all of this knowledge that has been gained over these years. And it's really amazing to get all this knowledge like before like your journey really takes off. To get to like soak that in and say like, oh, okay, well, I had to experience that firsthand. And now you could kind of like take these lessons and run with it and avoid some of the mistakes that I had to go through, or, or just educationally, like,
Totally.
there's so many resources now that we're, in the rooms we're talking about, just to better your craft or just to educate yourself when it comes to contracts and, how to present yourself in a room. So, skipping over those steps so that it doesn't take you longer to get to your goal is like so awesome.
Yeah,
like,
that's so great. Yeah, I never got a chance to ask some of the mentors, like, what was the sort of experience for you, like after like, decades in the industry, and then like kind of almost you see a little bit of a mirror of yourself, like, oh yeah, I was at this point in my career. And so how much different do you think things could have been in your journey if you had like gone to a retreat like that or been in community sooner? Or like how important do you think like that community aspect or like these types of opportunities like would have made a difference for you in your journey?
Yeah, I feel like it would have definitely moved my journey along quicker. I think I would have been able to know how to maneuver a little bit better than I did before, just step into my confidence sooner. That took me quite a few years to really feel that. So I want to say, up until probably like 2015 is when I really started getting my confidence. And I started writing in like 2008, I would say.
Okay. So it took like 7 years.
Took quite a long time, And, it's also a lot of people have opinions. And, realizing that like a lot of it is just subjective. Like some people just don't understand it, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're bad. Right. It just means it's not the right audience. Or, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's so many places these days to, quote unquote, get advice from different experts and, even just different like coaching platforms and stuff now, or like YouTube videos or whatever. There's so many places. It's so saturated of where you can get your information from. And, again, like you said, music is so subjective. And so sometimes you might get feedback that, either resonates or doesn't resonate. But that's why it's so important to at least as a filter, be taking your advice from people who have either done the thing that you're trying to do, whether it's write a hit song or whatever it is, or that, have really walked their walk. And obviously you're one of those people. So what do you think has contributed the most to the success that you've seen with your songwriting?
I would say what you're saying. So what has contributed, like, as far as just...
So like... anything external or internal? Like, was there, was it just sticking to the craft and rewriting the songs? Was it getting out and being, very proactive with networking? Was it not giving up on yourself when you felt really low? What were the sort of key things that really you, in your opinion, think that contributed to you seeing success as a songwriter?
There's so many people that want to be songwriters, and there's so many people that just want to be artists or just do the thing. But it takes a lot for someone to really dive in to understanding all aspects of it. So for me, it was really like spending time figuring out like, hey, I want to be more than one dimensional. I don't want to just be able to walk in a room and say, hey, I'll write the song, but somebody has to cut me, or I need a co-collaborator, or I need this. And it's fine if you need those things. But if you can push yourself to be more than one dimensional, and you know how to record yourself, and you don't have to rely on anyone else to do what you have to do, I feel like that really sets you apart, because you have to recognize, regardless of where you are in the world, the Mecca right now is LA, right? So there's interns and studio engineers that know how to record you, play guitar, drums, keyboard, they can sing, they can write a song, they can produce. So you're walking into these rooms, you have to, have some skills developed, or,
as a
try.
Triple threat.
Just like, make that like, so for me, it was really just like trying to study as much as I can. Like, all right, I want to be able to walk in the room confidently. So if I know what I like on my voice, I'm going to walk in and go to the engineer and say, hey, I'm going to need this on my vocals and this and this. And they're like, oh, okay, wow. You know your stuff.
You know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And just kind of like understanding what things do.
Right.
Creatively,
Yes.
I feel like first and foremost. So because there's so many times we rely on people and they have stuff going on. So if you really want to move anything forward that you're doing, you can only rely on yourself. Of course, you're going to work the hardest for yourself.
Exactly. It makes me think about when I first started as an artist and I didn't have any skills whatsoever in the studio. I didn't know how to record myself and none of those things. And I remember listening to just records that I loved. And I was like, oh, I love this production. And I couldn't even verbalize what I wanted out of the track because I didn't have the language, whether it was to describe a kick sound or if it was to describe a synth or whatever it was, or describe the plugins and like what the little thingies were. And so I remember being like 17, 18 and like I was an intern at a studio and I got keys to this place. And then part of the benefit of being the intern was I got keys to the place. So like after my job, I would go to the studio and I would like sleep on the couch because I would just stay there all night and like learn how to record my vocals and learn how to record guitar. And then, my demos were horrible. Like I was producing, they were so bad in the beginning, so bad. But the point is to be able to, like you said, equip yourself with, almost the language to describe and the skill set to be able to craft the clay of the sound yourself so that when you are in those rooms, you're able to communicate that, to describe your sound, to be able to even just tweak your vocal a certain way or whatever it is. So I think you're spot on there with just being able to equip yourself with as many tools and skills as possible. What would you say to somebody who's been at this for a while, is like kind of maybe going through like a downturn in their life? Or just like sort of a valley, we all go through peaks and valleys. Like, what would you say to a songwriter or an artist who's been at this for a while, but hasn't seen like anything move and is kind of getting hopeless, kind of like, what am I doing? Like, should I just quit? What would you say to that person?
There's always going to be peaks and valleys. We still going through them.
Yeah.
So the people that really are able to survive and maintain are the people that have that tough skin. So I feel like, there's this saying that I've heard before in the past is like, do what they won't so you can live how they can't. And it's very like, we put ourselves through a lot of things that we don't necessarily have to. We could go out and get 9 to 5, or we could go and do all these things, but we have the strong urge and purpose to like do what we have to do. We always manage to get out of those moments. So it is temporary. Like it will also pass. And I think that it's important that to also look from the bigger scheme of things. And if it's like, okay, well, this is going on a downward or I'm not getting any tractions, also just really like put into perspective, okay, but is there something that I can be doing better? Is it how I'm showing up? Is it how I'm writing? Maybe I change my approach. Maybe I work with people that challenge me a little bit more.
Yes.
There's different ways. Like you can't just be like, poor me, poor my, the industry sucks. Yes, we know. But, but there has to be like, okay, well, if I'm getting the same result by doing this over and over again, like, there's got to be something else that I can change or make different. And sometimes that just takes a new perspective. Yeah.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm going to butcher this quote, but I think the definition of insanity is just doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same result. And we can get into those traps as songwriters to just be like, okay, let's just keep doing the same thing. And then we're like, why isn't this working? And da-da-da-da-da. So I'm really glad that you brought that up because then there's an opportunity for empowerment there as a songwriter to be like, okay, I'm going to turn inwardly and ask myself the tough questions and say, what could I be doing differently? Could I be working harder on these songs? Could I be rewriting them, reworking them? Could I be in the room with different people? What opportunities could, if I just contact this one person or go to this one event, maybe that will turn the dial or pull a lever,
Right.
And so what's coming up for me now is like, has there been times throughout your career where either like fear came up to like pursue an opportunity or like where you had a moment of just like, oh, this kind of scares me, but I think it's the right thing for me to do? Have you ever, and how did that pay off?
I remember a couple of times, like even something as simple as wanting to get in touch with someone that I didn't necessarily have access to, but like I might have a mutual that does. There's a time and place when you can ask for those things, right?
Yeah.
But it was also like, once you develop your skill and you really start making some good connections and and some promising, opportunities come up, I was like, like maybe I should
reach out
to this mutual and say like, hey, I really want to get in touch with this person. Do you think? And I remember this one particular guy that I asked that to, he was just like, yeah, you could have just asked me, like, yeah, no problem, And sometimes, it's those kind of moments where you're like, oh, okay, it doesn't need to be a fear thing, just a confidence thing. If you have I would say this, if that's one of the goals is like to network or to get in front of people. I also feel like know your timing. Like just because you want to get in touch with them doesn't mean it's the right time. Like make sure, because we get one shot at a first impression,
Yeah.
So make sure if you're getting in contact with somebody, it's for a good reason. Not, obviously like to connect is to connect, but if somebody's trying to connect you, you gotta have a reason.
No, totally. Yeah. And it's good that you brought that up, because I think a lot of people get in their heads about reaching out to people and, kind of reaching above where they're currently at, and thinking they might get in their head about like, oh, I'm not good enough to reach out to that person, or they don't know me or whatever. And so that's where fear sets in, and that's where we start to hold ourselves back, when really, like you said, like, we're all 6, degrees of separation apart from whoever we can think of. And your friend was like, yeah, for sure, I'll introduce you. And I also think that like, this is an interesting thing between like, for men, I think it's a little bit easier to just be like, hey, I need this. And they'll be like, okay, I got you. Whereas I don't know, like for me as a woman, like I definitely have felt that it's like just harder for us to ask for help or ask for what we need sometimes. I don't know if that's been true for you, or like even in that interaction, you were just like, oh, I thought this was going to be a lot harder. It turned out to be it's easy. I should outreach more often.
Yeah. I think for me, like, sorry, you said some about, what was the question about?
It wasn't really a question. Oh, okay. I was just making a point about how like it could be slightly different, or women might have stories in their head about asking for help versus, really it was just about overcoming the fear of reaching out to people and knowing your timing. And also knowing, this is something that I talk to clients about too, where like if they don't get a response, to not take it as a rejection, or like don't make it a whole story about like you suck.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Like so many.
Still to this day. It was so funny because actually this happened recently too. And I had to kind of like check myself. I went to this event, and there's just like an old mentor guy that I saw there, and I misinterpreted him like being busy with like, he has an issue with me. And it's the same kind of thing. Like even still to this day, when people don't text me back, like, we still get that. Like, it doesn't matter what level you're at. People have so many things going on in their life and career-wise. So it's so hard to stay on top of just like getting back to this one person, We live in a different time now. Like, there's so much happening. Yeah. So just staying consistent and reaching out, not have to be annoying about it, but, just reaching out on some like, hey, I'm here, at some point people are going to be like, let me not be a dick. And like, what I mean? Like, sorry, there's so much going on. So sorry.
Totally.
But like, you have to understand that like the story that we like create in our heads are literally just fear and spiraling and thinking that you're not good enough. Like it's literally what we all do.
Right.
But it's so misinterpreted.
Reality.
Yeah, it's just not.
And that's not the reality. And, I had to, top of last year, I had to like tell everyone in my world. I was like, because I had just had a baby, I was in postpartum, I was like barely sleeping, couldn't drink water, I was like surviving. I had to tell everyone in my world, I was like, listen, it's probably going to take me at least 4 days to respond to your text message. And it has nothing to do with me not liking it, whatever. Like I had to tell people that and be like, listen, like I can't respond and it's going to take me longer. That was with emails, all the things. And so the point being is that, like you said, you have no idea what people have going on in their lives, and to take nothing personally when you're doing that outreach, but do the outreach regardless, because it's important and it's part of building your network and building community and your relationships. And those will ultimately lead to opportunities and success. So tell me a little bit about your Thank You Next, Seven Rings, any of the songs that you want to discuss, like any of the process of them, how they came about, any stories, share a little bit about your hits.
Yeah, it's so funny how to start off with coming from New York, like I was over here doing hooks for rappers and like did not think that I was going to be like writing pop music,
Yeah.
So for me, it was quite an interesting journey to get there. I had the pleasure of linking up with Hit Boy for like a week and when I first moved to LA. And luckily that relationship, progressed and like we got really, really cool. And honestly, I feel like we wouldn't have the relationship that we had during that time if I didn't know how to record myself.
Okay. So this comes back to one of the things, key skills that contributed to success. Okay, good to know.
Yeah. So what happened was I was working with Hit Boy, or like the first time I came to work with Hit Boy. I had my laptop and everything ready. And I walked in the room. He was playing this idea. And he was like, "You like this?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is great." And he was like, "All right, cool." And then he was like, I'm gonna email it to you right now. So he emails it to me. And then he's like, "All right, I'll be back in like 2 hours." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And there's like no engineer. Like it's literally just me in a room. And there's an interface. So I'm like, okay, I'm cutting myself.
Yeah.
So like if
do or die.
Right. Yeah, like imagine I would have been like, I need an engineer, like, or like came back and I had nothing done and he would have been like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Moving along. Yeah.
Yeah. And then based on me being able to do that, he was like, great. And we worked again for like a week. And then he was like, hey, so Ariana is coming to the studio. I really want to play her some of our songs. And I was like, amazing. So I came and the first record that I played was Better Off. And she was like, oh my gosh, I want to cut this right now. So Hit Boy had an engineer there. However, something was happening with the Pro Tools or I don't know what was happening.
Difficulties. Okay.
There was technical difficulties and I'm like looking like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is kind of taking like a long time. Like this is not okay.
We have a fish on the line. We have to reel it in real fast. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Fuck this. And I pulled my laptop out and I got in the booth with Ari and I was like, all right, girl, I'm cutting you on here. And I like plugged in my like little plug-in and laptop and I was like, all right, let's go.
Wow. Wait. Yeah. You've never told me this story.
Yep. Yeah. I probably still have the session on my old laptop, but yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
And like while we like did try and make it work, like she was like, we have to do this properly. Yeah. And I was like, yeah. So, but like, by the end of the night, I was just like, oh man, like, damn, I just missed out on an opportunity because this Pro Tools didn't work. Like, so, but the next day, Hit Boy was like, hey, Ari wants your number. So, and then she invited me to, work at Westlake.
That's incredible.
And, that was the start of...
You're like, all right, fuck it. I'm not going to miss this opportunity. I'm going to hop in there right now.
Yeah. You got to know when to...
Yes. Talk about like being like called forward. Like you saw the opportunity. You saw that it was taking, like you knew the cost of delaying, right? You knew the cost of having this train slow down. So you were called forward. You were like, okay, ready or not, do or die. I am now going to step into the confident songwriter and engineer that I know that how to be. And that's what saved the whole thing.
Yeah, seriously.
That's so amazing. I love that. It's such a great story. I mean, what a great story. Thank you for sharing that because I know that will inspire someone who's listening right now when there's a nudge, right? Like when there's like an intuitive nudge or an intuitive feeling. And if there's a little bit of like a pressure or a fear, it's like, no, act now. Yeah. Because the universe loves speed and that's how these things kind of come about. So that's such a great story.
Yeah. And people get like are confident in like your leadership. Like if you just step into it, they're just like, okay, we'll just follow it. Like they don't even ask questions.
Like you look like you know what you're doing. Yeah. Exactly. That's so amazing. Meanwhile, you just told me, you're like, it took me 7 years to feel confident.
Yeah, exactly.
She would have never known. She would have never guessed.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So tell me a little bit about, I mean, I know that you've mentioned that you've been like, multi-skilled, multifaceted, multidimensional. Tell me about like your songwriting process, like on a day-to-day basis. I know it can be different on each day, but like, are you more lyrics, more melody? And obviously I've worked with you, so I know a little bit, but in your own words, yeah.
Yeah, I could lay melodies all day.
The melody queen.
You might have to stop me, But it's really interesting. Like I've had to put on different hats depending on what room that I'm in. So like, for example, like, of course I love laying melodies, but then there's been times where like I've worked with Ink on J-Lo, and Ink will freestyle melodies forever. So I had to be the person that would be like, okay, wait. Let's make this a lyric now. Hold on, wait. I'm not the organizer. Like I would rather just like throw things out and let somebody else write it. But like in certain instances, you have to change up your approach, and that's fine.
Totally.
Some people prefer to write out the song first. So there's like all these different ways. For me, I feel like melody is what captures people right away. I like to really just hone in on finding the best melodies. And then based on those best melodies, we can kind of have a conversation about, all right, what are we feeling? What is this giving us, or the topic, or just having a conversation in general is like, first and foremost. I always tell people like prepare to like spend a good 1 to 2 hours just talking.
Like the warm up. Yeah. The warm up therapy session. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, that's how because some people are just like, damn, I don't want to rush right into the song. I don't even know you. So you have to really, especially people you're just meeting, like figure out who they are, make them feel comfortable by having those conversations. And you never know like where that conversation leads, what you can pull from it to create that song that day. But I feel like that's always like one of the best starts to a great session is like developing that conversation and seeing if we can pull inspiration from that conversation. Yeah.
I love that you shared that because, we all have our own sort of styles and our own way of approaching a song, but you can learn so much from another writer and just observing the way that they approach things. And like you said, you've had to change hats and like, depending on the room, like kind of try on different skills. And that sounds like that versatility is a key component of your success, even though there's a preference, right? Like you have you're like, melodies is my thing. This is the thing. And I was sharing with some of our clients that were at the Hitmaker Songwriting Retreat, and Bonnie McKee was there, and she was in the room with some of our clients. And, I think they only got a hook, and then they came out, and like Bonnie is like notorious for like melody, and meticulous. Like, do not pass go until this is like done. Like, there's a reason why she has 11 number one hit songs, which is crazy. And then our clients came out and they were like almost like defeated, like they got their butt kicked. I was like, you guys, this is great news. Like you guys got your butt kicked by like the best in the game. And like, what a great experience for you to see how like she approaches the melodies and why it's so important. And like, that's kind of what, to your point, is that like for you, it's like melody is king. That's the thing that grabs people, from your perspective. Obviously, there's other people that approach things with lyrics first, but there's always something to be said for paying attention to someone and how they approach a song and what you can learn from that. So what do you do in the times when you're feeling a little burnt out or don't have ideas? Like, what does your sort of self-care practices look like when you're like kind of caring for yourself as a songwriter?
I think that it's important to have a reset of getting life experience. We're not machines.
Yes.
So like if we just spend our day in a studio all day, every day, and we don't experience sunlight or, go grab a coffee with some friends, like, something as simple as that can just kind of like broaden your perspective if you're feeling burnt out. Sometimes like, for some people it's socializing, not in a sense where like you have to put on this huge mass, just people that,
you're comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly. For some people it's, just doing life, walking around, getting sun. It might be get some sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep a little bit, So
I'm going to like take that recording and just like loop it for like the next time I have a baby and I'm like losing my mind. I'll just
sleep a little bit.
Just get some sleep.
Yeah.
Everything will be better while I'm having, you're going to save me in my next postpartum mental breakdown,
great.
I think.
Yeah. That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what is your like self-care looking like these days? Like, I know it can be, like you said, it just depends on like what you're feeling or what you're needing in the moment, but is there any self-care practices that that really resonate with you?
Yeah. So I do a devotional, which is honestly just like internally and self-reflection, which is super important. I like to wake up. I got me some coffee. Sometimes I might have a little blunt with it, and I'll just kind of like reflect on the week and the goals that I want. And, just, I feel like for me, that just really just sets me up for the day. And
reflection time. Yeah.
Reflection time is so important. We're always like running like our minds, and it's always on like, okay, what's next? And sometimes it's just like, wait, how you feeling?
Yeah.
You all right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes like we just kind of put that feeling aside because we either have to show up for our jobs or we have to show up for our family, or like the people around us. So to the point where it's just like, dang, all right, well, like, how am I feeling? Like, let me prioritize that. And I feel like doing that before you start the day is so important.
So good.
Giving yourself that time, because yes, we all have to show up in different ways and, make people or things priority.
Yes.
We just can't lose ourselves in that process.
We cannot, you're right. And it's easy. It's easy to lose yourself because, like you said, we're all wearing so many different hats, like especially as songwriters and artists and independent artists these days. We've got all the jobs, right? Social media manager, tour book.
I don't know how you do it, because girl.
It's a lot. And the pressure is high too. And there's a reason why like mental health is just like, it is plummeting. Like the stats are crazy and people are more underserved, undersupported than ever. There's a lot of cool things happening. Like there's great organizations out there fighting for songwriters and also providing, more mental health tools. However, the landscape is so fast paced and the demand on an artist is truly higher than ever. Like the struggle to cut through the noise, to stand out online. It's so effing competitive. It's endless and it can feel really grueling and also really like lonely. Like if you're just like glued to your phone the entire time because you feel like this is what you need to do to compete or to stand out, the industry is in a really interesting phase, especially with AIs coming in and, we've got all this stuff. And so you're the perfect person that I want to talk to about this because, I could probably talk to you for another hour. But before we get off this call, I just want to talk about like the state of the industry. I know you've been like in the past, like really super vocal about like, paying songwriters, fair pay for songwriters. And obviously our approach to the problem is, generating new income for songwriters, serving the next generation of songwriters and emerging artists, and, coming up with something out of the box because the system's broken in a lot of ways. And I'd love to get your perspective on where we're at with songwriters these days in terms of fair pay.
Yeah, I would like to know too.
You're like, I have questions also.
Yeah. Listen, there's people that are tirelessly trying to change who has a seat at the table. The streaming rates are being negotiated soon. I don't know if you guys saw or you've seen Tiffany Red posting about having a seat at the table when it comes to negotiating these streaming rates. That would be a big game changer because there's people that represent songwriters, but not really. They're big corporations, and who funds them? Labels, publishers, or whatever. So like, everything is kind of just like, oh that's a coincidence. Don't you guys golf together? And, so like nothing feels like it's like, okay, like let's actually figure this out and take care of songwriters. It just feels like, let's just keep the money how it has been and make it look like something
else. Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's really difficult, but I feel like the upside to what has been happening is like, Now there's a Songwriter of the Year award. And honestly, most of the people that have stepped up, and gotten to speak on it have said, all right, like it's time for songwriters to get paid fairly.
Yes.
And which has been really awesome to see. It's great. I know Ray has spoken up about it, which is awesome. So for me, I just feel like something that is a standard, because we deal with this all the time, is that there isn't room for a writer fee, or there isn't room for points to be negotiated. And it's just like, that's always how it's going to go. That's always what they're going to say. They do have room. They just don't want to give you that.
Right.
Like it's very, you really could get these things if you push hard enough. I think that they depend on the fact that like, you really need that song to be on this project.
Right. It's great exposure for your career.
Yeah, great exposure. And hey, I can't argue with that depending on which one it is.
Yeah.
But the fact that they use it as leverage against you or a way to manipulate you is not okay. And it's just like, dang, just be a good person. Like people are just trying to like make a living.
It's such a tricky situation too, because especially depending on where you're at in your journey, like if you're just starting out and you get this really great opportunity, the chances are you'd rather just see that song happen than have to sort of, negotiate an arm wrestle for $500 or whatever it is.
Right.
But, if you're further along and you've been in this game, like, obviously negotiating and like asking for something that you want is a little bit more within your wheelhouse, and you're right, obviously. And so it's just such an interesting conversation because I've looked at it upside down, right side up. I've looked at it from the beginning songwriter to the sort of more established songwriter. And I've like been racking my head like what the answer is. And I love talking to people like you who've, obviously experienced this firsthand, like what you think the real solution is. Like aside from, changing the streaming payouts, like is there anything else that comes to mind where you're like, this needs to change, this needs to change, this needs to change. I want to see X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
A big conversation.
Yeah. I mean, regardless if it's independent or a major label, there needs to be a budget for the writing. It's so crazy that people will come to me and say like, hey, I only have X amount of money for the song. And then like this even happened recently where it was just like, okay, so now you want to get a feature for that song. You only had X amount of dollars to pay me for the writing. Now you have $30,000-$40,000 to pay for a feature.
Right?
Where was that?
Yeah. Right.
Where was that money when everything that you are building your brand around is the song that I just wrote you?
Exactly.
Like,
and this says a lot about value towards a songwriter, because it's like in that moment, in that scenario, it's like, oh, the value is going towards the feature, who is probably like a big name person, whatever. And then they're buying sort of exposure or whatever it is. And they're automatically not valuing you as a songwriter. So I think that is one of the biggest problems, is just either the industry, like just the industry not valuing songwriters, and also us songwriters not valuing us as songwriters.
Yeah.
There is that as well, you know? So,
I think it's also like, let's say, some people are just like, there was one project that I was a part of where I was very much like, hey, I want points. And actually at one point I was like, even if I don't get points, I just want my name saying I executive produced this because I did 90% of the project. You just got to write it with the font, and some people, and some people just don't. The response that I got to that was, no, you don't deserve that. And I was like, oh.
Really?
And that's why I was like, let me get a little goalie here, because you think that you have more leverage than me when I wrote that whole project. So you could go ahead and take those songs off and you're going to start from scratch.
Right.
And sometimes there is a need to get goalie to show people like, oh no, don't forget my value here.
Right. Yeah.
Like I always say, like, yes, it is so important to maintain relationships, but you don't need to be Switzerland out here. You don't. If a bridge needs to be burned in order to show that you're valuable,
or to take a stand for your value, right? Yeah.
Then it's okay. But understand when to do that.
Right.
There's some things where you have to look at, okay, maybe I'm not going to make money from this, but me developing this relationship with this person and getting this out of this, and I'm going to get that, means more at the end of the day than you getting publishing peanuts.
Yes.
Publishing like, so, sometimes it's just... So you have to like, before making those decisions, say like, okay, would I be okay if I burn this bridge to show my value? Like, if that's where they end up taking it, like, you could take a stand and people can try and take it to the next level. And then it's like, oh, okay, it's time to burn this bridge, bitch. But if not, and there's a way that you can maintain and salvage the relationship, then do that, because it's also like, okay, remember I did this for you. Let me pocket this favor real quick. And when I need you, you better show up, So, also making sure that you have enough of those in your pockets, enough favors, because when you really need them, you can pull that card.
There's something to be said for just communication too. Like, I mean, I talk to he's my husband and he's a producer. And so we deal with, and I'm on the artist songwriter side. So we're in the same industry, but we deal with different things. But we see, when we also experience the industry from different points of view, like I'm on the songwriter side, he's on the producer side. So there's been conversations where I've been like, listen, don't treat the songwriter like this, or like, I'd have to advocate from my perspective. I'm like, listen, when you do X, Y, and Z, that is like, you don't realize it because you're the producer, you get a producer fee, you get a blah, 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 whatever, all the things. And I'm like, you don't realize the leverage that you have sometimes in these situations. So I have to be like, pointing this out to you,
Yeah.
And so, but that being said, is that, there's been situations, whether it's with me or with him, where, we've had like really good relationships with our collaborators, and maybe, sort of the deal wasn't ideal, right? But we loved the people that we were working with, and we didn't want to burn those bridges. And it was actually more important to us to keep the relationship strong, so that more things we could, and we were great collaborators together. So it was more important to just communicate, be like, okay, for this one time, one scenario, this isn't my ideal. Like, next time I want the sort of production credit, I want a songwriting fee, I want points, blah, blah, blah. And like, because sometimes you get caught in that sort of like, here's the opportunity. If you ask for too much, it goes out the window. And that is a real situation for some people. So I just wanted to point out that, like, there is a power in simply communicating, especially when it's somebody like a friend or a collaborator that you don't want to burn a bridge with, right?
Yeah. I feel like, people kind of just skate over the communication aspect. There's one person that reached out to me recently and said, hey, would really like you to work with this artist I'm working with. And of course, I already know, based on my experience in general, okay, you're expecting me to walk into this and just work for free. Is there a budget? I don't even know. Like, none of these things are discussed. So I know you're just expecting me to go in the room with them, make a song, and then if you decide to use it, give me publishing. Right. But like, you just have free reign over this record that I just wrote. Like, we're not doing that.
Right. Yeah. And so my next question is, again, this is another popular subject that I've been seeing in the ether, hearing about in the ether, lots of different opinions around it. And I'm honestly still forming my own opinion around it too, because I do think songwriters do need to value what they're doing and charge for what they're doing in some scenarios. However, songwriters just starting out, like, I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, charge a fee. It's like, well, you got to put in your dues, you got to do your hours, right? And that's how you get good. And so what is your perspective on, charging fees for sessions, or like, is that become customary to you, or is it sort of like a case by case scenario? Like, how do you approach or navigate that for yourself?
It is, for me, a case-by-case scenario, like the same way that I was saying, like, hey, if a friend is working on an artist and they really, believe in the artist or whatever the case is, and they have a situation set up, that's another thing, is just like, okay, explore that then. Like, okay, well, what are you doing with them? Like, all right, what's the goal with them? Okay, but like, if it's a friend, obviously I'm going to look out, how I can, because I care about the relationship with that person. But in certain scenarios, I also have to stop myself. Sometimes it's like someone will just reach out and you just say something as simple as like, hey, that's amazing that you thought of me. Like I only have time right now to like either fully EP a project or take a day rate.
Mm-hmm.
So, you let me know if any of those things work for you, and then we could talk.
Yes.
Yes. And just kind of set it there. But I think that, yes, you're right. As new songwriters, you do have to pay your dues, and you do have to like proof of concept, right?
Like proof of concept, I
got this out. This is doing well, or this is, and it's not to say you're not a good songwriter, but people need that. It's like, hey, you're going to buy like a brand name product like Lysol because it works.
Right.
And then if you just see one that says,
I don't know you. I don't trust you.
Like prove that this works. Let me see. So, in that sense I do, but yeah, it's just figuring out what is, for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that's great because, and this actually kind of lends to my thought around, a client recently just spoke up about like how he's struggling to decide like what to focus on, which projects to say yes to, what sessions to prioritize, because it's so easy to say yes to everything. And I think especially when you're first starting out or even like midway on this journey, you can get into a habit of just being like, yes to everything.
Yeah.
Because you want to, sort of capitalize on all opportunities. But if you're not on fire about it, and if you're like dreading the session, it's like, my question is, what would you say to somebody who's trying to figure out that discernment of like what sessions to say yes to, what to say no to, and is there a power in saying no?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's such a power in saying no, for sure. But I think that it's also, if you're having trouble discerning what those things are, I think it's important to look at your goals for the future. What do you want to accomplish? Who do you want to work with? Are any of these people tied to those future goals? So let's say somebody reaches out to you to work on a project. Let's just say Joe Schmo.
Yeah.
And, and like this label is reaching out to do this, like, or a manager is reaching out to you. Okay. I'm going to go look at their page, see if they're active or not active. I'm going to see who their manager is. Who is their manager connected to? Who is co-signing these people? And a co-sign will be like, hey, a lot of times, and publishers and labels know this, right? So a lot of times they'll have a new artist and they'll get them in the room with like a well-known writer, producer. You'll see on the story like, oh, but Timbaland was working with her. Like, she must be fire.
Right.
So I'm going to go work with them. You know what I mean? So it's also based on, who is aligned with the project. Because if these people are putting in their time, then, okay, well, this must be something that maybe I make time for. So, just little things like that. But like, you got to do your research. If we're going to take this as a job, we got to do it.
Yes. No, it's such a great point because you can get stuck in a trap of like just getting lost of like, and you need that North Star. And that's why we coach with our clients, is because we start with big vision. Where do you want to take this thing? Who do you want to work with? What are the songs that you love? Who's the writer on those songs? Like, there's a real strategy towards who you're reaching out to, when you're reaching out to them, and of course, all the opportunities that we give clients in terms of, hit makers or songwriter series, or like, we're really just like, we want to help you fast track. Like, it took us decades to get where we're at. And it's like, oh, well, if I had this 20 years ago or 15 years ago, I'd be like, hell yeah, I want it, like, put me in the room. Like, let's go, ready or not, right? Kind of like how you said, you're like an unconfident, vocal producer at one point. But then when Ariana Grande walks in the room, you're like, okay, let's go. I'm vocal producing this. Yeah. So it's like the universe will put things in your lap, and it's up to you to say yes and to grab them. So, okay. So this conversation was supposed to be 30 minutes and we're coming up to an hour. So
amazing.
Clearly it was a great conversation. So we're going to wrap this up. But what's next for you? What are you excited about right now? Is there anything you're working on or you want to share, or how can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So for me, I've been actively just working on multiple different projects, but I have been really excited about my artist. His name's Houston Kendrick. He's going to be releasing this year.
Yes.
So I'm super excited. It's executive produced by DJ Camper. And it's a great project. So I'm really excited for that rollout and for people to just kind of get familiar with Houston and his music. Yeah. And besides that, like I'm open to anyone reaching out if they have questions or just need some quick advice. You can reach me on Instagram at Kaydence. Pretty easy.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did I invite you to be a mentor again at the next retreat? Because I'm doing it now. I'm inviting you.
Amazing. Let's do it.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
So you've heard it here. She's going to be at the next Hitmakers retreat.
That's
you were
right.
So amazing last year too, and everyone loved working with you. So we'd be obviously so honored and excited to have you back in any capacity based on your availability. So
yeah.
All right, This was so great. Thanks for coming on the show, and we're going to see you at Hitmakers. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I hope this episode supported you. If this resonated with you, share it with a friend, leave us a review. It is the best way to ensure that other artists and songwriters get the support that they need. If you are ready to go deeper, join us at the Hitmakers Songwriting Retreat this October 2026 in Los Angeles. This is our 3-day immersive experience where serious songwriters get in the room, write with hit songwriters, and elevate their careers. You can find all the details in the show notes, along with my book, Self-Care for the Creative. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, your greatest masterpiece will always be you.